3.
Hi everybody, Matt and Steph here, coming at you at 2 a.m., recording this for a second time because...
Live from our kitchen.
That's
because the sound doesn't carry as much to our neighbors here. We did a lovely video today because we had promised we were going to do Parallax update, Parallax/Exiled.
Yes.
And I didn't notice, professional videographer, 20 years experience, that the Snapchat filter was on. So how'd you look, Matt?
Steph looked great, and apparently the Snapchat filter took my eyes and replaced them with, like, shiny cartoon eyes, so I looked a lot like Judge Doom.
Like this!
Yeah. So little daggers shot out and everything. It was a mess.
Oh, God, we didn't notice, because we're trying to look at the camera and not at ourselves, so that you're... anyway, we messed it up.
Yeah.
Hello.
So we're recording this a second time. Forgive us if we're a little punchy, but this is coming at you live, and that's how it goes here at Cinevore's Patreon. You get all the behind the scenes that no one else gets to see. Lucky you. Anyway.
Except for 3 days later, I put it on the Cinevore
you get to see it
page.
first. You get to see our awkwardness first. So, at any rate, we are here to talk about our sci-fi universe. Parallax/Exiled. So we'll give you a little bit of the history on this. Thank you all for having followed this story over the last year. We've been posting these chapters every Sunday as a part of our Story Sunday. And we are actually this weekend wrapping up on Exiled.
Final installment, the epilogue.
Posts Sunday. At which point we are actually going to have a whole new series or a whole new story for you from Lauren Atkins, our collaborator.
Who you met a couple weeks ago for the first time. She is Medic Linden online.
Yes, and she has been writing her own story set in the same universe called Hemlock, about like an engineer on the edge of explored space whose wife disappeared 10 years ago, and she returns as kind of like an extremist, anti-corp kind of hacker, and he's got to pick sides between his friends and his work and everything he knows and loves, and his wife, who makes a fresh entrance into his life. So you will be enjoying that for a while. It'll be awesome, and in the meantime, we're going to have a bunch of other stories behind the scenes and art, illustrations.
Yes, we unlocked a community goal, I guess about 2-3 weeks ago, that we're going to start sharing art, and we've actually done more increments in our Patreon. So at every $50 per month level, we're going to keep adding more and more art until you start getting it once a week. So if you like Signans, which has been like the last few pieces of art that have been uploaded, you're going to really love Hemlock.
Yes.
And I think we should, for people who are brand new to Parallax and Exiled, we should just backtrack of like, where did this come from? What inspired you? Because I don't know if we've ever talked about that.
I don't think we have. So it's probably weird for a lot of people to be like, you guys are comedy guys. What is this? What is this sci-fi, like, bleak future post-apocalypse thing coming out of Cinevore? And it's actually a project that we've been working on simultaneous to all of the stuff you've seen and know, and Nerd versus Geek and so forth. It was a project I started probably in 2006 or so as a pilot script, and the concept was just of a woman who encounters a conspiracy, sort of, and I'm not going to pitch it right because it's 2 a.m, but she...
You got this,
Yes, she is a corporate peacekeeper. She realizes that the corp she's working for is corrupt and is hiding a huge secret that's going to be the destruction of humanity, and before she's able to tell anyone, she is exiled from the corporation. Her identity's erased, everyone's disavowing her knowledge, and she kind of is the only one with this information who has to pass it through the rest of humanity to try to save them from a coming war. So that's why it's called Exiled. In the story you read, nobody technically gets exiled yet, which is why we changed the name from Exiled to Parallax. This is how projects evolve. And so from now on, I'll be calling it Parallax, and that's the universe. And the Exiled story is one story of many in that universe. So,
well, in general, so we actually met in 2006 on MySpace.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the first stories that I read of Matt's, and I was like, I gotta meet this guy. And what I thought was really cool about it And it's crazy that you came up with this in 2006, but it was like, first off, there was like pandemic, so it's just like, oh, okay,
Yeah, there is a end
Yeah.
of Earth kind of virus, so that's a
Yeah,
thing.
and so some of the early story, I'm like, Matt. But the second thing that's kind of crazy is it's really about what would happen if the governments became smaller and corporations got bigger and started providing social services and providing your everything, your housing, the mail,
Yeah.
all of the jobs. So I think what my futurist husband here discovered is like what would basically happen if Amazon
Right,
kind
if
of
the
run.
government abdicated all of its roles to Amazon, which is
Yeah.
just a crazy
Yeah.
idea.
Well, it was a crazy idea in
I
2006,
know.
and now I'm like, no.
Well, so it sat as a screenplay for a while. It never got to the point where I was happy enough with it that I submitted it anywhere yet. But I actually sort of reconfigured it into an RPG, like a tabletop role-playing game, and I started putting that out there, in part here on the Patreon, and in part just to like other friends and collaborators who we've worked with over the years. And one of the funny things is that people playing it are like, "Oh, it's so futury. The corporations are taking over." I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, this isn't like that part of it. It's not the first time anyone has thought of this or seen this, but it's the way in which it's all compiled, and the way in which it's presented kind of makes it a little bit different.
Well,
So,
now it's just much bigger than that. So that was
Yeah.
the initial story, but not only has it been significantly updated since 2006, I think what you've been building for over 10 years now, over 10 years,
Yeah, I know.
has been a universe, a world, and not just on a planet, like the entire universe. And so when we talk about Parallax, it's really hard to nail down what is it, because it's similar to if someone who'd never ever heard of Star Wars or Star Trek, yeah, I'm gonna say both.
Right. Don't want to
it's-
offend anyone.
Yeah, well, if someone said, "What is it about?"
Yeah.
And so if you said specifically, "Oh, well, but in Parallax, what is Hemlock about, or what is Exiled about?" We could tell you, but the Parallax universe is sort of like the Star Trek universe in that there's just it's big, and you have to see where are we going to focus the lens. Are we going to talk about Picard, or are we going to talk about Kirk?
Right. Are we going to talk about the frontier planets? Are we going to talk about the core planets that are all developed? Are we going to talk about the wheel, which is like this massive ring world they've constructed with this quantum technology? Are we going to talk about like the cyberpunky, like hackers versus corp dynamic that exists in some places? Are we going to talk about like space exploration and
Yes.
like starship battles and or whatever?
I mean, my favorite part,
Yes, go for
part,
it.
which hasn't been done yet, but if it's coming, I'm ready. Is the splices. So, in Matt's universe, we haven't made first contact yet. So instead of like species or aliens or things like that, humanity has evolved to extract DNA from other creatures to enhance themselves. So right now, if you are very affluent, you can actually see it not just because you have the crest white strip smiles and you have like a expensive watch and a fast car.
Shiny Judge Doom eyes.
Yeah, that was free.
That's right.
How would you like
it's
explain
DNA
it?
splicing.
Yeah.
So when humanity explores a new planet, as opposed to simply terraforming it, which sometimes will take decades or a century to do and is very expensive, it's actually cheaper for these corporations to splice your genes to match the environment of the world they're sending you to. So in some cases, they're splicing people to be able to live in outer space, and they put this cryo sheath over where their skin would be. In some cases, they've destroyed a planet so much that they actually need to create a race like the Signans, which are there to transfer energy from electronics and cybernetic devices back into living creatures to regrow like the wildlife, the flora and fauna of a planet. And in some cases, it's just like people want to be able to, like Steph was saying, if they're wealthy enough and they just want to be like, oh, I think I would it would be great to have like cat eyes and be able to see over long distances or in the dark, or splice with underwater races so that you could breathe through gills instead of lungs, and all of that is a part of, and it also makes the underwater parts of planets they find usable instead
suddenly
of
accessible, like
Yeah.
we're suddenly going to have like a real like Atlantis type situation. But what's really cool about it too, we also go the other way of people who want to be less biological, people who want to splice with technology, right?
Yes.
And so now, instead of just discriminating based on gender and culture and
Yeah.
race, now we have discrimination of your splice. Do you have a crappy one? Do you have a low budget one? Do you not have one at all?
Yeah, in fact, tried to replace any modern types of discrimination. Like, for the most part, Terrans are Terrans in this universe, and everyone's like, oh, that's fine. It doesn't matter what race or gender or whatever you are. But the new thing that people will discriminate about, because humans will always find a way to be jerks, is how cybernetic you are. Or what is that? Was that going to be a tagline?
That was going to be a tagline. Parallax. Humans will always find a way to be jerks.
It's true.
It's not that.
As much as I would love there to be like the Star Trek utopia, the Gene Roddenberry vision of humanity not fighting with itself, I mean, he did it great, right? Why would we remake that universe? It's more fun.
There's like 20 new shows coming out. You're going to
see, but Gene Roddenberry died, and they added conflict, so now the humans in Star Trek fight with each other.
Right.
And I think you need conflict to make a project interesting. I still love all of the Roddenberry Star Trek stuff, but I also love this stuff, and I love the darker, bleaker futures. So finding sort of a realist view of a futurist view, I guess, of what the future might be.
Well, I think if I had to peg it, Parallax is a little bit of Johnny Mnemonic, a little bit Elysium, a little bit Hunger Games, would you say? Right?
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
Okay.
So, I know
so I'm just trying,
Johnny Mnemonic has at least a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I like
so
Johnny Mnemonic.
Surefire.
Right? I'm Jones the Dolphin. I'm Team Jones, right?
That's right. No, I mean, there's so many good, like, I think any good sci-fi project takes pieces of of real life that writers, creators, whatever, see around them and mixes it with the pieces of other projects that they really love. So every time I see something that's similar to something we're working on, I'm like, oh, cool, we had the similar mindset, and this is just like where the thought process is.
I scream on the inside, but yes.
I do that too, but I cover it with being like, oh great, we think like people who get stuff on TV, so maybe
that's
one
true.
day.
Maybe we're on the right track. So we just wanted to, even though now we're at the end of book one, we wanted to just introduce the project because we like to do stuff in logical order.
Yeah, we're mementoing this for you.
Oh yes, we did it on purpose.
Yes, exactly. We're the next Chris Nolan. So in any case,
so ridiculous.
We are. There will be more updates soon. You will hear them from Steph. You will hear them from me. You will hear them from Lauren. You will hear them from a combination of us, and also
maybe Harry, who we'll introduce soon. Ooh, sneak preview, Harry.
Harry, who has been working on a lot of the mechanics of the RPG with me, and doing a great job of building this into a game that we can soon talk about, and then not even sooner, but after that, possibly release in some form as a playable game. So that'll be really fun to see which parts of this universe make it out into the world and which order. So stay with us for that. Lots more coming soon, and more updates from us shortly. Thank you for being a part of this, and talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, Sandivore. Beep.
Stop recording.